The framework for me doing social brand building and building businesses is what's the brand stand for? What's the business objective? The next thing we do is we create 40 to 50 consumer segmentations.
Okay, let's pause it. So I think the first and obvious caveat here is for business to business, this is utter nonsense. This is dangerous and it is frightening.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Marketing Blender Show. I'm Dacia Coffee.
And I'm Daisy McCarty.
Today is so exciting because Samaria, our social media lead, pulled a whole bunch of clips from social media for us to simply react to. We don't know if we're going to like them. We don't know if they're going to make us mad, if we're going to agree with them. So this could be fun. This might be a total train wreck. I have no idea.
Let's find out.
All right. Game face on. You ready?
Bloopers await. Let's
Okay.
go.
All right. Oh, Gary V, number one. Let's go.
She knows us so well.
Exactly. A complete marketing strategy in 3 minutes. All right, Gary, let's see what you got.
The framework for me doing social brand building and building businesses is what's the brand stand for? What's the business objective? The next thing we do is we create 40 to 50 consumer segmentations, not 3, right? 40 to 50 consumer segmentations. 18 to 22-year-old males living in Bangladesh that are into esports. 21 to 27-year-old females in Tokyo making $200,000 a year. 40 to 45-year-old moms in Malaysia who have an affinity towards high fashion. Real specific consumer cohorts with real teeth, okay? Next on that is called PAC, platforms and culture. Like, do you actually understand what the platforms are doing? Next, which platforms are you creating for? You've now gone the whole way down. Now we're gonna pick Instagram and Facebook and Twitter. And for me, every brand that's in this room should be on all of them. But this is back to allocation, where do their dollars go? So they can't, but they should, but they'd rather spend $8 million on a TV spot. So you lay out the platforms. Then you go to work. So now you created a framework. Now your creative and strategy team are ready to work. Now you start posting against the framework, right? You know what consumer you're going after. You know what you're trying to achieve in business. You know how the platforms work. So you know Facebook Reels is underpriced right now. You know that.
Okay, let's pause it. I think we've got enough to react to. So I think the first and obvious caveat here is if that is a room full of business to consumer companies,
Yeah.
some of what he's saying is probably helpful. For business to business, this is utter nonsense. This is dangerous and it is frightening.
It's too much. And I agree. You know, I think also the hidden assumption under this is he's talking to businesses with a volume play. You know, how many did you say? 40 to 50 segments, which of course is what we call buyer personas. You have to have that. This suggests that you have the budget and the campaign and the team and the time to scale content, scale money, scale reach, scale message across 40 to 50 buyer segments. Not in B2B. I totally agree. So, and even in consumer, like you have to be big. Like each one of those requires its own campaign, its own team, its own content, its own message, its own budget.
So even if this is B2C, unless he's talking to very mature organizations, this is also not good advice because you can't start with what he's telling you to start with. Because even if the point is do all of that and then start shutting off the stuff that doesn't work, most people don't have the budget for that.
Exactly. So it's funny because he did mention allocation, and it was like skipping a rock, like
Yeah.
And really, that prioritization is absolutely critical because he always preaches go bigger, go more, do more. Yeah, but what if you can't? What if your marketing team is one person? What if you're a solopreneur? I mean, what if you're trying to allocate resources and expenditure to some other, you know, initiative where you just have to make the most with what you have, which is what we typically see with B2B marketing, where focus on the highest level of impact, go straight to that component, and then work your way outward, scale once you get that right.
So the other thing, of course, that he said was you should be on all the platforms. Okay, maybe if you have 40 to 50 customer segments, maybe they are actually on all the platforms.
Yeah.
But again, marketing is about making decisions.
Yeah.
the strategy of do all the things everywhere all the time at maximum speed and maximum volume, that's not actually a strategy.
No.
That is just let us spend as much resources as possible and hope that something works.
I agree. And it just always goes back to, I mean, he said consumer segments. We always say buyer personas because I prefer to think about people as individual human beings versus groups of consumers. You know, you know, I can't stand that term. But anyways, it's fine. If your buyers are not on TikTok, you officially and permanently have my permission to not go to TikTok. Because dancing is not going to help you sell one single iota of your thing if your buyers are not there. So again, I mean, there's just this, oh, you should be on all platforms. Yee! Only if you're sure about that.
If we're talking about the leading brands in CPG that have all the budget in the world, they have $1 billion that they can spend.
Yeah.
Sure. Why not go out there and see what you can do in each of these spaces? See if you can do, generate demand or attract your target buyers onto a platform where they weren't before just because they want to see your amazing content. Maybe, but this 99% of companies that we talk to, this is completely the wrong advice.
Totally. So I will say the one thing that I do like is that he is talking about strategy. So I am like, yes, thank you. We do not just dive straight into tactics. When he was mentioning segments, I did like, and if you pay attention to the detail, he is talking about very specific targeting. So for instance, when he says a 40 to a 45-year-old, no, that's right. You know, when we hear age or demographic ranges where it's like, oh, they're anywhere between 25 and 75. No, they're not. That is a minimum 3 or 4 different personas if you're actually right about that. So I did like the specificity, Bangladesh. He didn't say all of India, or that type of thing. So I definitely appreciate that. I like that he tied culture to platform because each platform does have its own culture. You need to be bringing your culture to that. So I assume he's talking about personalizing and customizing your message. He didn't mention messaging. That takes a lot of work. Like you can't just be like, oh, I'm going to trust my team and every single person on my team to totally nail our message and be able to specifically customize it every day with that frequency to our buyer persona. So I think he skipped that, but maybe it's just inherent here.
Right. And also, I'm a big fan of segmentation, but over segmentation too early is a waste of effort.
Completely agree. All
right. Well, he was going to tell us more about his strategy and frameworks. Let's watch the rest of the video.
Green screen, headline, creative is over-indexing on TikTok, So you start making. Now the work really begins after you make. You have a person in your strategy team called a PCS, a post-creative strategist. Her and his job is to look at all the qualitative feedback. You have your analytics and media team look at the quant feedback, and you start making your machine smart, like a half-pregnant AI. The team gets smart through the work. You start looking at the proxies. When you've got a retail brand that sells in retail stores, you're running the media against holdout clusters to prove that you're actually driving incremental growth. If you have a DTC brand or an app, it's a piece of cake. You're just looking at the black and white data. When the creative goes viral or over-indexes its norm, it becomes the brief for more efficient and effective work. So now the virality, based on the consumer sentiment and intent and truth, becomes a proxy to your brief, not a strategist sitting in an office, going on Reddit for 4 hours, writing a brief. Then you do that forever and ever and ever. Your cohorts are an accordion. As you start getting affirmation that something's not working, you actually eliminate Malaysian moms 40, 45 because you aren't finding affinity. Your creative team hasn't hit the mark. On the flip side, while marketing to Indonesia gamers 13 to 15, you realize it's actually the female gamers 13 to 15 that are even more interested in the intent, and you create a new cohort to go there to double down on the truth of the consumer, not the audacity of the boardroom.
Okay. I was fine with that last part. I totally agree with making sure that you're following sentiment, that you're listening to what's working, that you're killing and keeping things on purpose, not just set it and forget it. So I totally agree with that. He's using a term, PCS, fine.
We need more marketing jargon.
Exactly, I know, right? But a really healthy strategist is doing this. They're not sitting in an office, writing a brief, give me that job. Like, I don't know what that is, but I do agree with the virtuous cycle, paying attention to what the data is actually saying. Again, back to core assumptions of this audience. These are highly data connected organizations.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I mean, even, attributing data to specific retail centers and that type of thing. All right, there's some heavy duty lift assumptions around they have the data infrastructure to do this. And even if they're untangling spaghetti, it's actually there. We just need somebody reading it.
It's true. And I would say post-creative strategy that he was talking about, absolutely, it's about evaluating, deciding what to do more of. The one thing I didn't hear, and it may just be because it's not part of this discussion in his mind, is post-creative strategy. When I hear that, I'm like, what's the next thing you have that person do in their buyer journey?
Yeah.
Not how do I put more content in front of them that keeps them in the spin of the social media, which is also a great nurture, but it's not progress.
Yeah. And that's a great point, because it sounds like this is hardcore demand generation, right?
Yes.
In B2B, we are tracking full buyer's journeys. We're watching long sales cycles. I mean, we're super lucky when we get sales cycles that are only a month long. You know? So that is a really good point, that there are so many different components of the buyer's journey that we're tracking the data on, whereas with consumer sentiment, not so much, a lot more brand sentiment and demand gen sentiment.
And the one more thing that I wanted to touch on, because you mentioned virality. So going viral is awesome, and learn what you can from that. What's the thing that's triggering it? But also consistency beats virality every time.
Yeah.
That's why if you look at the big brands, some of them run the same commercial for years.
Yes. Hello, Chick-fil-A cows.
Yes, right. It's not like new
They're not
concept, new
viral.
concept, new concept. It's repetition. It's consistency. You know what? Learn from those viral moments, take the wins, leverage those. If you have something that you're like, this is blowing up, what's the next step for this buyer as they come in? Absolutely fantastic. But don't make virality your strategy.
Oh my gosh, I agree. The one that I love to point to, which does both, where they were, viral and they beat the drum, was Dove, or still is Dove. So they had those experiential campaigns where they're videotaping real women, real women's responses to experiences and their own thinking process. And I don't know over what period they went viral, but they eventually ended up being massive. But they didn't just kill it and move on. And also, it was so core to their brand archetype and who they are and what they stand for in the world and what their brand represents. So always a great example.
So I think one of the main takeaways from this is, if you're listening to Gary Vee and you're not the kind of company that he's talking to, don't listen to Gary Vee. Because the advice that he's giving may be very suitable for specific sizes and types of companies. But if you say, oh, this is a guru, I should listen to him because everything he says is gold and it should apply to my business, you don't have the money.
Yeah.
You don't have the time. You don't have the resources. So you're going to have to be a lot more strategic and a lot smarter.
I love it. Love it. All right. Ready for another one?
I am.
Okay.
Here's how to discover the best marketing strategy for a new product or service in 5 steps. Step number 1, make a list of every single marketing opportunity that you can think of, good or bad. For example, paid advertising, media coverage, content marketing, public speaking, crowdfunding, or word of mouth referral. Step number 2, go down the list and brainstorm a realistic game plan for each of the options.
Stop. Okay, first step in marketing strategy is not sales mapping.
And it's not, hey,
Oh
let's
my
collect
God.
every single tactic we've ever heard of without thinking about whether this has anything to do with our buyers. The other thing is, let's pretend on some bizarre world that this makes sense, that you start with tactics. This also assumes that you have had so much experience in marketing that you're going to be really good at this part, where you're like, oh, every single thing that that is capable of reaching my market, I'm going to know about, I'm going to have heard about, I know the name of, and I know to put it here.
Right, because he said everything you can think of. Wow. For somebody who's just starting out, that's not going to be very many things. I can do
Yeah.
Facebook ads, or I could do Google ads, right? I mean, and it's just skipping. When we build strategies, buyer personas first.
Yeah.
If you are not doing that first, you do not have a strategy. You have a cluster of tactics.
That's right, exactly. And I do want to share a dirty little lie about marketing that we share with our clients. And just for today, we're going to share with you is a marketing plan is every single thing that is reasonably done that would reach your target market. And the lie is that they're wildly unrealistic. But it's important, right? So I agree with trapping all of the squirrels on a page. That's called a marketing plan. Here's every single thing, every single role, every single goal, every single tactic that makes sense for our market to reach. But then what do we do today? What do we do within our existing resources? So I know I'm getting down the pathway.
All right, let's see what he has to say.
Okay.
Step number 2, go down the list and brainstorm a realistic game plan for each of the options as if it was the only option available to you. This is critical because it's easy to dismiss strategies that aren't common for your industry or product. Yet these uncontested options can often have incredible potential. Step number 3, select 3 to 5 of the most promising options, prioritizing speed and predictability. Step number 4, conduct inexpensive tests to learn more about the most promising options. And finally, step number 5, select the most promising option and focus your effort
Wow, I just
on
feel like
making
my
the most.
mind is
Okay.
overwhelmed with the depth of this.
Prioritizing. So taking every single tactic that you may or may not have gotten right and that may or may not reach the buyer personas that you didn't even talk about at all. And knowing, this assumes you know the system to make these work and that you know how much it costs and that you know how to do the research on, like, holy cow. I mean, how is a business owner that let's assume doesn't have a background in marketing going to go through that process and there is no decision-making criteria around this? It's just, what do I think about this tactic? And let me do a deep dive on this tactic without any strategic decision-making criteria.
Yeah. So one thing he did say that was interesting to me is if you looked at each tactic as if this is the only thing that I could do. That's an interesting thought
I
exercise.
like that one. Agreed.
I did like that. It's
Yep.
like, which most of the time you're going to be like, I'm not going to make it.
Yeah.
I'm editing myself, but you know what I mean? Like, oh, this is not going to work. But also, that is not how tactics work. They work together.
That's
and
right.
if you're not looking at as a system, then none of those tactics are going to work.
No, exactly. You know, I mean, one of my favorite examples, especially for small businesses, but all really, is social media and what's the real role of social media. So we see small businesses prioritize social media. Now, if you do this exercise, will you get a B2B lead from social media? Rarely. Rarely, until you are way down the road, or unless you're running very specific paid programs, very specific social selling, that. But just posting on social media, super rarely.
Right.
So then maybe social media is a validator. Maybe in the sales process, they're going back and being like, oh, you know, this man or woman is who they say they are. So that's a good example of, I love that thought process, because if you cannot confidently say, oh, this is going to drive revenue for me, okay, like you do need to have the clarity on what role it plays. But
Now, he did say speed and predictability.
yeah, love that.
2 factors also
Speed to revenue.
impact, not just can I get low quality leads as fast as possible.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
like there's a lot of stuff that's missing in that. But yes, you want it to be predictable.
Yep.
And then he said, then run some inexpensive tests.
No such thing.
First of all, what tests? How do you run a test on all of the 100 tactics that you just wrote down and decided you're going to try?
Yeah.
Like, and then what are you going to determine as a result of those tests? So that it's one of those things like, and then a miracle occurs.
No, I agree, because, you know, testing has to do with volume of people that are running through the test. Do you even have a minimum amount of people inside of your ecosystem, all things working together, that makes sense? And then what's inexpensive, right? So we always define investment as attention, time, and money. So in what part is it inexpensive? Because if you don't have a lot of money, you have to spend a lot of attention and time. You know, there's always a trade-off there. But okay, when we were working with a franchisor, they're spending $40,000 to $50,000 a month just on their digital media, not counting everything else. So their inexpensive tests were $5,000 and $10,000 a month. You know, a appropriate percentage, and then testing it. Anybody not in that type of media maturity is thinking, what? You know, but a lot of times, you know, we unfortunately have to tell a lot of small businesses, hey, inexpensive is only $1,000, $2,000 a month. And they're choking.
And that's just to find out, is there opportunity?
That's
not to find out what's going to get you the most leads. Can you get anything?
Yeah, exactly.
Are you able to compete in this space? And then there, the quality of the testing.
Exactly. Are you a CEO of a business-to-business company? Maybe you're a sales leader or a salesperson, or maybe you're in business-to-business marketing. Well, if so, I wrote a book for you, and it's called Corporate Caffeine. Business-to-business marketing is different, but there are certain predictable, fundamental principles that will help you unleash your organizational potential and fill your pipeline sustainably. So you can find my book on Audible, on Amazon, on barnesandnoble.com, or any of your favorite retailers. Hope you enjoy it, and I'd love to hear your feedback. All right.
Maria did a good job.
She did. I know. This is fun. Okay. The 3 most profitable pieces of marketing advice. All right, let's go.
3 profitable pieces of marketing advice. Number 1, free is the most enticing word in marketing. Use it
stop.
often. Number 2.
Stop. People don't believe free.
I think we are past this. Oh, what was that book? Oh, well, it doesn't matter. We'll have Samaria put it in the description. But there's an old book about the power of free. It is 2024. Come on. Okay.
Right. So, free in the B2B world, people absolutely do not believe that free, because in the business to business sector, every change has an organizational cost. There is no such thing as free. It can be a free demo, it can be a free pilot, it can be a free this, it can be a free that, but it is never free when it comes to organizational change. So if you think that free is the magic word in B2B marketing, it is absolutely not.
And even when I think about my consumer behavior, my personal behavior, couldn't care less.
Nope.
Couldn't care less. Somebody's giving me free, it means it's low value, even if it's not. But we are in a noisy, overwhelming environment where we have perpetual access to amazing free content and resources. I don't think we get brownie points for this anymore. No.
Use it often. Number 2, don't sell products or services. Sell outcomes. Number 3,
Okay, don't sell products or services, sell outcomes. Sell transformations, because that's the features and benefits language. I think we are way outgrown this. And how did that person's life, scenario, desire, emotions change after engaging with your product or service? Outcomes, I don't know. What do you think?
I don't think it's some groundbreaking concept. I mean, this has been the advice for a very long time. I think there is a nice nuance between transformation and outcome, because outcome is a single thing, but transformation is different for each person. So it provides you with, we were talking about segmentation in a couple of clips ago, but it gives you the ability to talk about a transformation journey differently based on which persona you're talking to and where they are. So what is that progress? And I think in the marketing side, we always talk about how you're helping them make progress. And yes, there's an outcome, but you don't actually have to know exactly what that outcome is if you understand how to make progress.
Absolutely. It's interesting because, for instance, if we're talking about revenue growth, we helped a company grow 20% year over year, 100%, double, triple, quadruple. That number typically represents something different to a specific business owner. It might be freedom. It might be they're going to sell the business someday. It might be reaching the potential. It might be profitability because they're hitting economies of scale. It might be size of the team. It might be what they believed about what was possible, but so much behind what an outcome represents. Right. All right, number 3.
Number 3, believe in what you're selling or no one else will.
Duh.
I know, it's a masterclass. Masterclass.
These are fun. I'm not going to respond to that
No.
one. Yeah, thank you, Captain Obvious. Okay.
I think AI wrote that.
You know what? I bet you're
think
right.
It did. I think I felt like it was maybe even an AI voice, but it was definitely AI content.
Agreed. See, there's another little masterclass in AI and how worthy it is to just
regurgitate. No idea of who you're talking to or how outdated the information is.
Exactly. Yep.
What's something that you're not often asked on podcasts and interviews that you think people should be asking?
In B2B, what's the best way to market? And I think it's about giving something away for free. I look at B2B, a lot of it as a race to the bottom, especially in software. So for example, if I was a payroll service provider, I would give away free payroll
All
software.
right, so pause for a second.
I love Neil
It's Neil
Patel.
Patel.
I know. Neil Patel. Hey, Neil.
Yes.
Okay, here's the free thing again. Okay, I'm going to skip the free because we talked about this. The race to the bottom, we do see, if he's talking pricing, we do see a race to the bottom in pricing in sales teams so frequently that so many sales teams will be like, oh, but we're too expensive. Oh, we need to lower cost, or oh, they only care about cost. It's never about price, people. Pricing is always representative of something different. If they need to lower price, it's because they don't think you're special enough. So I'm interested in that. The free download, again, like it's just standard operating procedure now.
Software because it's not that expensive. Companies spend so much money on payroll software, right? You're going to make more money giving away payroll software for free. And a lot of companies who use payroll software need health insurance for their customers or their employees. What I'm getting at is, what can you give away for free that's a mousetrap? Not freemium, but free, and then sell them something bigger. We give away SEO software.
Okay, if he's talking about a real substantial hook that gets you embedded in operational processes every day, that is super high value, like truly free, truly good software, yeah, I'm in on that. Like, that's fine.
That actually ties back to a B2B strategy we've talked about before around sponsorship. So if you're like, oh, we are a provider of this just because it helps our customers.
Yes.
I actually like that.
Yep, totally agree.
A lot of it for free. Yeah, we have some paid versions, but we give away most of it for free because we sell them services which generate way more revenue than software, in our space at least.
So many people need to be thinking more about this, where they think the first net new engagement is the only thing, like just net new, so exciting. More customers. But that buyer's journey, and we've talked about this on recent podcasts too, of accelerating and predicting where those upsells come from and having a revenue strategy that grows and matures with your client. It increases lifetime customer value to you and to them. I'm in on that.
And I know it's difficult, especially if someone is trying to build what they believe should be a SaaS company.
Yeah.
To say, well, we want to do less services because that's not scalable.
Yeah.
Sometimes services are scalable if you operationalize and systemize it.
Bravo.
And if that's where the profitability is, then using the technology as the on-ramp into
Bravo.
recurring revenue from your clients, that can make a lot of sense.
Oh my gosh, exactly. So much good stuff. I think one other weird thing, and this is chasing a little bit of a squirrel, if there is a heavy onboarding fee, but you can think differently about how to amortize that or how to build it in for free or how to operationalize any sort of customer investment that might scare them to death, and instead swap something out for free that is high value add where you know the long-term value increases. Love that too. But again, revenue strategy and friction in the buying process.
I think something that's important is agreeing on the value of free.
Bravo.
Like if you are at a point in the client engagement where you can agree on the value of something and then you give it to them for free.
Yeah.
Completely different than top of the funnel. Take my free stuff, take my flyer, sign my petition. Like,
yes.
Very different.
Oh, I love that. Totally agree. Okay, she pulled one final one for us. You ready?
Yes.
We have this fancy new AI thing. So what? Why does a customer care? What is the value that fancy AI thing delivers for a customer's business? If you put into ChatGPT, like, tell me how April Dunford would do a positioning statement, you'll get 5 paragraphs of absolute bullshit that says April Dunford says a positioning statement is essential to great positioning. And you're like, does she now?
You're like, I'm April Dunford, and I disagree with this statement.
Journalists are always amazing writers when they're writing about something you know nothing about.
Right.
But when they're writing about something that you know a lot about, they're idiots. I don't think there's a substitute for bringing together the knowledge in someone's head that you've got from sales, marketing, and product. There's magic that happens when cross-functional teams get together and say, I see this with customers. Oh, that's funny. I see this with customers. And the things we see are in completely different contexts. Magic happens right there.
All right. So
Love
can we have her
April.
on the show? Because
Right, April, please You're officially invited to the Marketing Blender show. I love her. I love this post. I think there's so much goodness here. So, okay, unpack what you heard.
Yes. So why should your customers care about AI? Oh my gosh. So I saw this cycle with blockchain about 5 years ago. Everybody's adding blockchain to their existing solution. Whatever it is, we're blockchaining it. I remember there was a Peanuts cartoon many years ago. And one of the characters was talking about their hi-fi bracelet. It's like, it's hi-fi. It's the same thing. It's blockchain. It's AI. They're adding all this stuff in because it's the trendy thing, but who cares?
Yeah.
And if the answer is my customers care a lot, great. Good value add. If not, then you're just doing it because everybody else is doing it.
Yeah, exactly. There's a client that we're working with right now, and they have they work through big box retail. They sell into them. They have an amazing, innovative product that's very low brow, low tech. Reed also low cost, high value, major focus on the customer. Guess what? All these big box retailers, it's not AI. They don't consider it innovation. And so literally they have this thing with all of this validation from the market saying, we want this in the big box retailer. They have demand case studies. They have letter writing campaigns, these big box retailers being like, please put this in the store. There's so much data, and the buyers are valid, like just saying, yeah, but we need AI. It's just the most maddening scenario. Fun to untangle this problem, but fun. But yeah, like, I know that was a squirrel. But just everybody caring about AI right now is driving me nuts. Just the tail wagging the dog.
Right. And of course, the rest of what she was talking about is, if you really know what you're talking about, you can tell if somebody else is full of nonsense. And B2B buyers are not stupid, and they're not uninformed. They're not uneducated. So be very careful in abdicating your responsibility, to use your term, for creating actual content that speaks to your buyer personas by figuring the AI can do it for you.
Exactly. Don't restate things that people already know. So do not play in the shallow end of the pool in B2B. If your buyer is like, yeah, of course, I already know that. You're just wasting valuable seconds that represent them paying attention to you, which is very hard to win the war on attention. So don't do that. And then the other thing about that is thinking about the phrasing that makes people go, wait, I've never heard that before. Or, oh, that's interesting. Or, oh, I've never heard that take on it. That's what B2B buyers are looking for is, oh, that's something interesting that gets my juices flowing and my critical thinking churning around, can I advance my business or my goals or my objectives or solve my problems with that aha moment. And so you can't just AI that. You've got to really think about your mastery and how do you contribute value in your messaging and in your real thought leadership to the market. And AI is not going to come up with that because machine learning is just returning existing ideas.
This piece of content is a great example of real human opinion.
Yeah.
Even if it's not popular, you know what? It has value.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's a great one to end on.
I agree. Thank you, April. And thank you, Samaria Boyd. Amazing as always. We hope you guys enjoyed these. And by the way, if you've got anything that you'd like us to react to, please DM us on any of our channels at The Marketing Blender. You can ping either one of us or you can find Samaria. Thank you so much. And definitely hit that doggone like button and please subscribe. And we'll see you next week. Onward and upward.